Howdy, all of you delicious people. I'm here today to review Lou. So, if I could describe Lou in one word, I would say that this movie is entertaining. Like, it does remind me of, First Blood, like the Rambo movie, or it also, in all honesty, reminds me of the Jeff Bridges show, The Old Man. Like, that would be the immediate comparison. Because when I was kind of going through this film, I'm like, oh, so like this feels just like that show. So it kind of ruined it for me because I'm like, did they just steal this idea? But anyways, so it kind of feels like for this review, I'm gonna have to keep a lot close to the vest. If we already have a character who's wearing a bulletproof vest in this film, um, simply because I don't feel like I want to give it all away. But I'm gonna try to also vague things out also. To me, this movie, I'm not quite sure about the title 100%. I think it's called Manhunt. Um, but there was this Benicio del Toro movie and Tommy Lee Jones film where we had Del Toro who ends up in the woods and he has killed a number of men. And then Tommy Lee Jones comes into that forest to come after Del Toro and try to go on and kill him off. And come to find out between these two characters, there is a connection between the both of them. And so for me going on and saying that, I would go on and say that for this movie, I would probably easily compare what I just said there to possibly what is to go on within this film. Cryptically put the pieces together when you're watching this, and then you'll understand. Uh, I, of course, was to like the action in this movie. I liked how like this is a slow build film, and so yeah. So what can I go on and cryptically say about this movie? Well, come to find out, we have a girl named Hannah that is to have a neighbor named Lou that is to be bickering with Hannah about her rent. So Lou, it seems, at some point is going to have to save a life when it seems that Lou could not be considered all of that trustworthy herself for obvious reasons. Because it seems that this girl is packing sand and in some ways going on and calling it a day in this film. And so it's like, okay, like, what is she packing for? What is she, like, doing all of this for? And why is she going to wrap this up immediately in the beginning of this movie? It's like, man, that would be an odd way to just have a character in the film that we're focusing on. But I'm figuring that there's going to go on and be some kind of turn here. And wouldn't you know it, there of course is. So we have a guy that is to be coming into town who is to kill a guy off. And we are to start to think like, okay, that this guy should just be going on to the nearest place and start attacking and killing people because he's this random guy. And then come to find out the reasoning for why this guy does anything isn't all that random. And Philip, of course, is to steal this little girl called V, and Hannah is to now go on and be upset that her daughter's missing. She runs to her neighbor's place to see if she can use her phone, and Lou is to go on and tell Hannah, it's like, well, hey, come with me, like, we'll go on and we'll find your girl, and Hannah's like, we need the police for this, and Lou's like, well, I'm a Girl Scout, so like we'll be fine. Like, don't slow me down. So I'm just like, so what? And then we go into the film, and they give us like, okay, like there's more than meets the eye here. And then I'm like, oh, okay, all right, you got me, film. Like, I wasn't surprised by it, but I was like, okay, cool. Like, there's a whole reasoning for everything. Okay, great, yeah. And the action was pretty good. So with that said, uh, definitely I would say, I would say a good, solid good. Like, creativity kind of really weighs me, but like, at least at the end of the day, it's positive. It's a positive review. Enjoyment had by all. Um, as the further and further this story goes, I'm like, nah. I'm like, nah. Like, no. But, like, I enjoyed the build up and whatever. But anyways, it's just time to say that it's about that time to go into spoilers. Let's do it so that we can go on and say more about this film, because I, of course, was to be very vague. So yeah, check this movie out. I would go on and say, because it's conveniently on Netflix. It's better than a lot of the Netflix crap that's out there, so check it out. Let's go into that Double Five. It's about that time, yet again, to go into what it is, of course. Spoiler time, spoiler time. It's about that time you can spoil Who. Let's go through this. So, in the beginning of the film, we are to have Lou, who it seems she's writing this note, and she is like stacking meat in her refrigerator, and she is to be digging this box out, and so on and so forth. So it seems like Lou is like planning for the end of the world. It seems like that's what I thought. Like, is this movie like one of those like the world turns to crap, and then Lou is to kind of be with Hannah, and like and crap breaks down or something like that? Because I really didn't pay attention to what this movie really was. I didn't go through trailers. I just went in completely blank. So, or without knowing what's really was going on here. So Lou, it seems, is going into town, and she's just taking like this tarp and these things, and even to when the guy's like, "Hey, I wanted that," and it's like, "Well, you like Lou needs it more. She's the main character of this movie. I'm sorry." So we we have Lou, who is planning, it seems, to end her own life. This person is going to take a rifle to the face via her own means. And I'm like, that would be a weird way to just finish up a movie. Like, hey, like Lou's dead, now we just have to go on and just like, why did she just do herself tree a foot? But no. So Hannah is to go on and write all these notes and put all these things in perspective. So we have Hannah that is preparing for this storm, and her and her daughter, of course, are playing hide and seek. It seems that Hannah is to immediately know where her daughter is, and is just kind of playing around with her to where, like, she is to, of course, just be like, yeah, I can't figure out where my daughter is. I'm curious. But so, Hannah is to then find her daughter, and so, like, we of course have V's like, well, one more game, and Hannah's like, no, like I think we need to just kind of prepare for the storm. And so, but then Hannah gives in to her daughter, because it's like, okay, because come to find out, the game of which they are playing is actually something wrong, like further into this film, of which we find out. So it's a wrong thing for Hannah to have gone on and had V do this, but it is what it is. So we have a guy named Chris that is to make his way talking to Hannah, and so Hannah tells V to just like, hey, go on and get out of here. So this guy, it seems, is to talk about the fun that they had at this bar and like the drinks they had and so on and so forth. And so Chris is going on and now saying to Hannah, it's like, well, like, are you ever going to tell your daughter about her father? And Hannah's like, well, not yet. It seems that Chris is going on to figure out a way to have this book called Death or Dying, so we can do some research to figure out some way to convince Hannah to say it's like, hey, it's time. Because, of course, Hannah is to mention to V that her father is some treasure hunter and at some point he'll come home. So, also, like, this movie kind of, like, reminded me of, like, Kindergarten Cop for some goofy reason. But anyways, so Chris goes off and is to be driving his way, and we all of a sudden have a guy that is to be in need. Like, this guy's like, hey, my car broke down, like, you can be doing me a solid by getting me to town. So Chris is like, okay, like, come on in. So come to find out, I'm like, where is this car that supposedly broke down somewhere? So Chris is talking to this guy, and this, of course, is to be having this guy who is to be seeing this book about, like, well, hey, like, kind of weird, awkward reading, a book called Death or Dying, and Chris is like, well, yeah, but I'm trying to, like, research a best way to kind of break it to somebody, and it's like, oh, so you're going on and trying to break the news to some family members. You can kind of work your way into getting with some girl, aren't you? And Chris is like, well, yeah. So all of a sudden, we then go on to have this guy who is to see that this guy has a cassette. It's like, well, hey, yeah, like, I like this song, like, let's play it. So the guy ends up playing the music and is playing this really loud. And I'm like, okay, there's something here. So all of a sudden, we then have this guy, who we come to find out is Philip, who ends up turning to Chris as they're just kind of having fun, and he bashes him onto the steering wheel and is to kill him horribly. Hannah ends up finding Chris's car later, and it seems that he's like being tortured and he's dead. So we then, of course, go on and have Philip making his way to Hannah's house, where he is to go on and leave these postcards, and then he ends up finding V's room, and he ends up putting gas to it, knocking V out. So Hannah is to have, before leaving V alone, is to feel like there's something wrong, that there's something suspicious going on. And so Hannah goes on to tell V to hide in her room. And so Hannah is to try to go on and investigate to figure out what's going on. So V ends up getting taken. Hannah ends up coming back to her place and realizes that there's postcards that says, "Hi, Mom, my turn." And so it's like, oh no, like, how could he have said something like that, knowing good and well? So we then have Hannah that goes to Lou's place. And we had Lou, who is to be kind of like very disgruntled with Hannah, like, hey, your rent's coming up soon. And we had Chris, who was talking to Hannah about like how like Hannah doesn't really like Lou all that much, even though it seems that V is to go on, and she likes Lou because she likes Lou's dog. So like, ipso facto, she likes Lou. So, anyways, so Hannah is to make her way to Lou's place, is to see the black tarp, and Lou is to state it's like, oh, I was doing renovations, I was doing painting, sure. And Hannah's like, you were gonna spray your walls, weren't you? With something. Anyways, maybe she's a murderer. I wouldn't trust Lou anyways. So we have Hannah that is to mention about her daughter going missing, and so Lou is like, okay, well, let's go and let's find her. And Hannah's like, well, we should call the cops, and Lou's like, let's go and find your kid. And I think Hannah has this like skepticism where it's just like, wait a minute, like, who are you to just say let's go? But it seems that Lou is to have a plan and be organized and so on and so forth. So Lou and Hannah end up going out together. So they go out into this location, and so it seems that Lou is to go on and track what is to be Philip's footsteps and kind of figure out where he's going. So we have at one point where Philip and V are at this cabin, and so Philip is to give V this present of this Walkman, which I'm assuming he probably killed somebody and took it from. But it's like, hey, yeah, here's a present. And Philip is to also try to convince V that he is her father by going on and doing these little hand gestures and stuff like that. That of course, it seems that V would remember. So Philip is V's dad, and so we then go on to, of course, have Philip, who ends up starting to just kind of, even in like pouring down rain, we have Philip who is taking V in this kind of like wheeled like towing mechanism to where he can kind of have her in this little place where she's not getting rained on, and he can continue to just walk his way through the forest. And so we have Lou that is to make it to that same cabin where it seems that Philip was at. Lou is to go on and have Hannah like stay quite a far off, and so we have Lou that ends up asking Hannah, it's like, well, hey, like, do you think that you can shoot this gun with the sniper on it, the sniper rifle? And Hannah's like, yeah, I've had some training before. And so Lou ends up giving Hannah this knife. And it's like, well, hey, if anything goes wrong, stab them in the eye. Because of what they can't see, they can't kill. So Lou then makes her way to this cabin and is to, instead of be like standing upright, like, hey, yeah, like, how's it going? All of a sudden she's like shrinking down and she's like, my knee, this, you know. So Lou is to kind of make her way to one of the men here that is in this cabin. And so I think his name is Gary or Jerry. So we have Lou that's like, hey, like, like, I don't think that I can make it back like a couple more hours. Like, could I just like get out of the rain a little bit and just kind of warm up, and then I'll be out of your hair? And Jerry's like, well, are you alone? And Lou's like, well, yeah. So we have Lou going into this cabin, talking to Tony, it seems, and Lou is just kind of looking around. She's kind of really just like, yeah, like, this is so warm. Yeah, like, and so these guys, of course, are complaining about this place and like how the weather is, and so like Lou is like, well, yeah, it's like it's a unique place, but so the more and more that Lou is to start to kind of look around and kind of just like, we all of a sudden have Tony who's starting to realize how much that Lou is analyzing here. And so he's like, okay, there's something up about this woman. All of a sudden, we finally have Tony who's talking more and more as if Lou is going to see her last days here. Jerry's like, hey man, like she's an old woman, just kind of just leave her be. So finally, when it seems that the jig is up with Lou, Lou then goes on to immediately figure out a way to take out Tony, and then is to push this table down and have Jerry starting to fire in on this table. And so when Lou immediately dispatches the Gary or the Jerry guy, we then have Lou who focuses on Tony, and we really start to see the combat skill that Lou has. I'm like, yeah, like this is great, because we have her in a style where it's like she kind of fights, kind of like Riddick does in the Chronicle of Riddick, where we had the characters play this game called like Who is the Best Killer, where Riddick would go on and find like the most random item that would not make sense to kill a person with, like an item like the size of your finger, and just be like, okay, I'm gonna kill them with this. Or you would find like a coffee cup and like, okay, I'm gonna kill you with this. How? They'll figure it out. And so, come to find out, we have Lou, who is to have this uh, this metal like pop can, and so or soda can, and she ends be kind of tearing away a certain piece of it to then go on and to use it as like a knife. And I was like, wow, that's really interesting. And like kind of like the survivor skills are kicking in. So we have a bunch of biting going on here. We have a bunch of like interesting fighting, but at some point we have Lou who is to kind of use like these antlers that were from some dead deer, as well as we had Lou who is to go on, and in the early stages of this film, she was to shoot down a deer, and the sheriff was to mention to Lou, it's like, oh, like you had to shoot this deer because you needed to be safe, right? And Lou was like, well, yeah, of course I was. Yeah, sure. And so the sheriff is just like, yeah, I'll just kind of let it slide because I like you for some odd reason. And so we, of course, had also Sheriff Rankin, who was mentioning about this bracelet. Yeah, like this bracelet, I hardly feel arthritis anymore. And Lou was like, oh, well, that's great and all, but I'm not going to buy some goofy bracelet that you got off some infomercial late at night somewhere. But it seems at some point when the sheriff does meet up with Lou, he ends slapping that bracelet on her. That's like, yeah, like these bracelets work. Oddly enough, like as if they were trying to sell these things. I don't know why. Why do they have these bracelets? It seems so very unusual. I guess to kind of have a character be unique somehow. So we have Hannah that is holding Tony down and wanting to figure out where he's going. Like, so where is he going? Like, where, uh, like, what was his plan? So it seems that Tony is to give Lou this information. So both Hannah and Lou are to continue to go on to make their way past to try and eventually get to Philip. So Philip and V at one point, we have them stop, and so V is saying like, "Yeah, I need to go to the bathroom," and Philip is like, "Okay, all right, we'll go. Just go into the woods somewhere." So at one point, V is to spot this butterfly because V is very distracted, and so Philip is to notice that this butterfly has a busted wing, and is to possibly mention that uh, this thing might have just been meant to die soon, and so on and so forth. Because this guy is to be kind of more and more creepy as we find out, because he's the villain of this story. Because why wouldn't he be? There's something wrong with him. So Philip is to tell V, it's like, well, hey, yeah, put it on this tree, and like when you're going to the bathroom, like I'll just kind of hope that the butterfly is gonna make a recovery somehow. So we have the kid going to the bathroom, and then so Philip ends up grabbing back onto the butterfly and puts it on his hand, and he just crushes it. He kills it because like it's gonna die anyways. So this guy just likes to hurt and kill things anyways. So V is realizing like, yeah, this is my dad, but like this guy is freaking weird. There's something wrong with him. Because V is to mention to Philip, it's like, well, hey, like if you're my dad, like where is like my mom? And Philip is like, well, I gave her a bunch of clues of where we're going because this is to be a treasure hunt. We're going on an adventure. As Philip is to kind of hear all of what V is to have told him that Hannah had said, and so Philip is kind of twisting and turning it to his benefit. Just like, yeah, we are going on a treasure hunt. Yeah, that's what we're doing. So Philip goes along with V, and so they go further into this trip, and at some point we get to where V can no longer be like hauled by Philip because they have to go on foot, they have to walk. So Lou and Hannah are to at some point uh, stop and whatever, because come to find out Hannah is to have this foot injury, and we have Lou who is to look at Hannah's foot as she takes her shoe off, and it's like, well, yeah, you should have like told me about that sooner, and like like I could have easily helped you out here. But anyways, or I could have like said that we could have stopped sooner, but you kept on walking because this girl is stubborn. She needs to find her daughter. So come to find out, Lou is to have her own issues, her own problems, and so it feels like this is like the worst time for her to start having arthritis problems or any other kind of things. But anyways, so because we're gonna get to a point where both Lou and Hannah are to need to start shimmying uh, from one side of this bridge to another, and this bridge is to be down. So it's like they're having to actually climb their way from one rung to the other. And we have Hannah that is talking to Lou. It's like, well, how is it that, like, Philip was to bring V through here and have them both do this? I'm assuming that the bridge was probably perfectly fine, but then Philip, after making his way through, was to probably cut the bridge, and now it sucks the way that both Lou and Hannah are gonna have to go through this. So, come to find out, Hannah ends up struggling, and so Lou is trying to help her, but then all of a sudden we find out that Lou is struggling also because her arthritis really kicks in here. So all of a sudden, Lou is to be gripping onto something and she can't let go. So Lou has to go on and try to take her one hand and try to try to get her other hand off, and Lou ends up falling in the process, and so Hannah then falls after Lou, and Lou is now telling Hannah, it's like, we just lost an hour, like, let's hurry up, let's go. So we have Philip and we have V, who is by these rocks, and so we have Philip who ends up putting his handprints on this rock, and we have V who puts her handprints on this rock. And so Philip is telling V, it's like, well, hey, like, no matter what, like, even after you die or I die or anyone dies, like, these fingerprints will be on here forever. It's like, it's a weird way of putting it. So, uh, so yeah, so Philip is going and talking to V, and and so the more and more the V is talking to her dad, the more like she just finds him strange. And so Lou and Hannah are making their hopefully more of their way to get to where Philip and V are. And so come to find out, Lou, when making it to the cabin, she ended up finding this postcard that she saw this code, and Lou immediately knew what the code was. So we now have it to where Lou is starting to go on and take certain postcards onto her own. It's like, well, why should she care? Because it's not her thing. Like, it's not her mission. But come to find out, we'd realize that that is the actual opposite. That this is actually more Lou's mission than it is Hannah's. Weirdly enough. So, come to find out, we have Lou that is to meet up with Hannah, and they end up divulging their secrets between one another. And so we have the sheriff who's getting a call from these these big officers, these big la-di-da officers. And so the sheriff is like, okay, like, I'm listening, like, why are you guys telling me any of this stuff, so on and so forth. And so the agents are like, well, hey, like, we're gonna go on and do our own investigation, like, look nothing into this. And the guy's like, well, why? And come to find out, Philip is to be this Marine officer, and he, of course, is to have killed a number of civilians. And it seems that Lou is to also be wanted by the CIA because she has withheld information. So both of them are both wanted people. It's like, alright. So Lou is to at some point meet up with Philip, and they are to talk it out. And while we had Lou who is to tell Hannah to try and reach the sheriffs on the radio. Because before, when they had this walkie-talkie, like, Lou didn't want Hannah to use the walkie-talkie because she thought that it would give away their position. So Hannah lets Lou go and use the radio to call the sheriffs, and so Lou goes on ahead and is to talk with Philip, and we find out that Lou is Philip's mother. And so that's the connection there. And immediately when I heard that, I was like, okay, like giving us some mystery to this film. But I was like, oh, okay, all right, like, sure. Like, we have to have like this perfectly woven together, all of these things. It just can't be random. No, like, it all has to be connected. As if, again, I would always bring back this story where, like, there were to be the first two Marvel Ghost Rider characters, both Johnny Blaze and Danny Ketch, and conveniently during a wrapping up of both of their stories, they would go on and state that the two characters that were Ghost Riders, of course, were Ghost Riders because they were brothers. And like, okay, that's like, I think whoever wrote this story would probably get some flack for that. And of course, he's like, yeah, I'm sure everyone was to go on and give me flack for that story because the guy was doing a featurette about it in the first Ghost Rider movie. But yeah, so anyways, I always just bring that story up just because it's like, that's the goofy thing of like, oh, how small the world is to be a story. So we have Lou who is trying to convince Philip, and Philip just wants this chase to kind of continue. So to kind of finish this up at a certain location, a certain specific location. And because Hannah is not there, then this story cannot really be resolved. So we get to having Lou and Philip who need to have a fight out moment. Because Lou can't just go on and just let Philip walk away. No. Philip and Lou start fighting. Philip ends up taking the back of an axe to Lou's chest, and that brings Lou down. And so Philip goes off with V to continue on to this lighthouse. So Hannah makes her way back to Lou, like, oh my god, Lou! And so Hannah is to figure out a way to put gauze over Lou's injury, and so now we have Hannah that is to realize, it's like, well, hey, like, I need to go on and find my daughter, and like, I'm going to do this no matter what. And so Hannah just starts walking off, and Lou's like, no, like, you can't do this, and you can't do this without me. And Hannah's like, you're just gonna slow me down. And so Hannah then goes off to go to the lighthouse, and we also had Lou, who was to give Hannah all these postcards. And so Hannah makes the connection that all of these postcards were to not be for Hannah at all. They were actually to be for Lou, because Lou is Philip's mother, so this was just some bizarre mind game that Philip was actually playing with Lou, knowing good and well that Lou had purposely tried to watch over Hannah to try and protect her all of this time without her realizing the connection between them. So we have Hannah making it to the lighthouse, and so it seems that Philip is to be holding on to V. And we have Philip who is consistently saying to her dad, it's like, I just want to hug my mother. And so Philip is like, okay, go on and go. Because Philip immediately is to put out of his hand that he has this explosive, which Hannah did not notice. So Hannah is to go on to have this handgun, and she is to have a knife on her. And so Hannah, when hugging V, is to tell her, it's like, hey, game on, like, go and hide. Because Hannah is to divulge to Lou that V was to play hide and seek consistently, so that way, when Hannah would ever get paranoid that Philip would be making her way back to her, Philip or Hannah would go on and consistently make a hide and go seek game for V to have V always be hidden when Hannah would ever get paranoid. So it's like, wow, that was a very like crappy thing to do for your daughter, and then probably not tell her about it. So Philip and Hannah are on this lighthouse, and so we have Hannah here that is to shoot into Philip, and when she is to run out of bullets, she then goes on to take a knife, stab it into Phillips's hand, and set this knife up into this hole to where Philip's hand is trapped. And then so Hannah goes on into the lighthouse to find out where V is hiding. And come to find out, this lighthouse is rigged with explosives, and it's not so easily that they can just make it out of this lighthouse again. No. We then have Lou, who makes it into the lighthouse and is to have stolen the sheriff's four-wheeler, and the sheriff, when meeting Lou, is to give her this bracelet because of her arthritis. And so Lou is to mention about needing a first aid, or otherwise her injury is going to bleed out, while the sheriff is running off to get what he thinks is to be a weakened Lou. Lou is to grab this four-wheeler and drive off, and sheriff's like, ah, son of a... So the sheriff was to also try and ask Lou questions, but it didn't really seem much like she was giving him many answers. So, with the exclusion of like, well, hey, like she was like withholding information, and so of course they were coming after her, and I think those, I don't think she spelled out everything to him. So, come to find out, we had these CIA agents that were on this helicopter that were flying by to try and go on to see if they could spot uh, these characters. So Lewis had this bulletproof vest that I guess she got from this four-wheeler, and so she makes her way into this lighthouse and is to spot the explosives, and she's like, okay, well, like we can kind of rig this explosion to go off on this certain radio sequence, but that can only buy us so much time. And so Lou is telling V and Hannah to figure out a way to get out of this lighthouse. And so Hannah is to squeeze V into this kind of one open slot, but then Hannah can't go on and free herself, so it's like, hey, go, get out of here. So Hannah then goes back to one of the doors in the lighthouse to try and lock it and tie it because, of course, she's a Girl Scout too. So, like, that's the goofy back and forth thing that both these girls are Girl Scouts. It's great. So, Hannah and Lou try to figure out a way to muscle this door to open more. And so, Lou and Hannah end up getting out of here. And so Lou ends up telling V to get the biggest, longest stick she could find, and V ends up bringing back two. So Lou ends up rigging this radio sequence to explode the lighthouse, and so Lou is now turning to Hannah and saying, like, okay, like, well, like, you guys get out of here. I'm gonna go on and face my son, because if like you've gone on and faced your fear uh, to get your child back, I'm going to do the same with mine. So Hannah was also to mention that she had like bruises and stuff that Philip had kind of tortured her and hurt her with, and come to find out, Hannah was to realize all the stuff that Philip ever did to her was all because of Lou. Oh no, that's the truth. So, like, there's a whole, like, tunnel rabbit hole thing that kind of goes down here that all spirals from that. So, Lou is to now have this stick, and Philip is to have his own crowbar or whatever thing that he had. So, we have both Lou and Philip fighting it out here within this beach. And so we're thinking that both of them are going to just die at this point, but come to find out, we'd realize wrong. So Lou is to trigger the explosives of the lighthouse to bring back the helicopter to make these guys find out where both these characters are. Both Lou and both Philip, because it's a shoot on sight, like, these people are dangerous. So Lou and Philip, we have a point where they're fighting, and Philip ends up locking his weapon in Lou's bulletproof vest, and Lou just finally goes on and is to take her son and embrace him. And you're thinking, I'm like, wait a minute, is somebody going to die right here? Like, is there going to be, like, all of a sudden this one maneuver that's going to be, like, this, like, weird, goofy, like, turn around and snap the neck thing or something? But no, like, Lou and Philip are hugging. And then all of a sudden, the helicopter ends up coming by and shoots the both of them. But then we also realize that Lou is wearing a bulletproof vest. So, supposedly, both of them were lost out in sea, and supposedly. And so then we transition to, I guess, have had Lou, who leaves Hannah with everything, and leaves her a note saying, like, yeah, like, I know that this doesn't make sense, but you'll all get it by the end of this. To have Lou just state that it's like, yeah, like we're family, and so I'm going to leave you everything. And so we have these CIA detectives that are asking Hannah, it's like, well, hey, like, do you know anything about what Lou left? Do you know any paperwork and so on and so forth? And Hannah's like, no, like, I don't know anything about what you're talking about. So Hannah, of course, is to be prepared to move out of this location because she's very leery of the fact that uh, like she's like this place has been discovered by Philip. Who knows who else is going to go on and try to come after them next? Maybe someone who's related to Philip. Maybe some father, or some brother, or some something. So Hannah is to then go on and go on this ferry to just get out of town, get out of Dodge. So come to find out, we have a person who, in the distance, is to have this dyed brown hair, and we have to naturally assume it's probably Lou. And she's just kind of looking at her, Hannah, like, yeah, like, you go, girl, you did it. And so that's really how the movie just kind of resolves in a lot of ways. But yeah, I think other than that, I think I'm just gonna try and quickly get out of here. I know there was a lot of details where I didn't go into the specifics about this movie. I just narrowed it down a lot. Um, but yeah, so anyways, I think I'm just gonna go on and just get the heck out of here. Let me know in the comments below how you felt about Lou, how you felt about this movie, if you liked it, if you enjoyed it. If you are to go on and say it's like, what are you talking about? This movie is unique and it's fun and it's blah blah blah, because people have those opinions, the wildly different opinions of which that I have, and so really it is what it is. But I'm going to be positive about this movie. Like, I don't think there was like an obvious like, no, this movie just weirdly sucks for some goofy reason. No, like I enjoyed it. Thumbs up all around. Like not praising it too high, but because it was a slow film, but like it was good enough for me. So with that said, bye everybody, bye everybody.